Wednesday's tragic events have our Northland lawmakers speaking up and in some cases speaking out against the other side of the aisle.
Northern News Now's Kyrie Johnson heard from a couple of them today. Kyrie, emotions seem to be running high.
Yeah, Dan and Briggs, these local lawmakers are angry and they are devastated for the Minneapolis community, and they took this opportunity to talk about what they believe should and shouldn't happen going forward. Today I spoke with Republican Rep. Natalie Zalesnikar of Friedenberg Township, which is just north of Duluth. She says yesterday's events could have been avoided. She attributed the violence in part to poor school safety and the SHIELD Act not being passed in recent years. The act, which stood for a safe haven in every local district, was intended to increase security with extra door and window locking mechanisms, install bullet-resistant doors and windows, and more. Zalesnikar blames Governor Walz and the other side of the aisle for putting funding toward other projects.
The governor needs to step up and lead and really walk the talk, because talk is cheap. It's time to put the words into action. We had the money. We could have done it. They had 100% party control, and Republicans have been saying, look, this is a big mistake.
So spoke with DFL Duluth Rep. Lish Kozlowski today. They took a different stance, saying the fact that there are more guns than people in the U.S. should be the focus of the issue. For Kozlowski, the focus of yesterday needs to shift to put more emphasis on common sense gun laws like background checks.
We can't just say thoughts and prayers, because those kids were praying, actively praying when this happened. And so there's a lot that we can do, whether it is, looking at a national ban or state ban on assault weapons.
And while the two reps have very different beliefs on what could have been done and what needs to be done, they both agree the tragedy of yesterday cannot be overlooked. Zalesnikar says the SHIELD bill is drafted and ready to go for the upcoming legislative session, and Kozlowski is continuing to call on the elected officials to pursue a ban on assault rifles statewide. In the studio, Kyrie Johnson, Northern News Now.